What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we have a brand new episode of Fan-Made Exotics, the only series that lets you submit your exotic weapon, armor, ghost shell, or heck, any Destiny exotic idea and have a chance for a realistic concept art to be made for it. Now that's because we've partnered with the artists Benjamin Radaman and Michael aka Rageblade, both of which will have their deviant arts linked in the description down below. So on the docket for today's video, we are going to showcase 5 featured concepts that all came from the comment section of last episode, and then we're going to talk about some tips to help you get selected. Now, if you do want to make a submission, if you want to submit your exotic idea, all you need to do is make a comment in the comment section down below, including what your idea would look like for the artist, your perks for your weapon, any stats, and of course the exotic perks involved. Now, if you are submitting, make sure you're doing that on the newest video. If there's a newer video than this one, an annotation will appear right now leading you to it. And so, let's get started with the 5 featured concepts. Now, the first one by Rageblade is the Body Snatcher, exotic hand cannon concept by Mammoth123. This weapon has a few unique perks, firstly with the exotic perk Body Snatcher. When you kill an enemy with a precision shot, they are going to leave a med pack on the ground. If you pick up this med pack, you will start to immediately regenerate your shields. So it won't give you like a boost to shields, but you'll just start recovery. So that in and of itself is very interesting. But we then get into the other exotic perk, the passive perk, Final Stand. Guardians who wield this weapon always survive with 1 health left. So essentially, if something was going to kill you, if something was going to deal 200 plus damage to you in one shot, you would only be dealt 199 damage and survive with that 1 health. Now, of course, if anything hits you after that, you will immediately die. It's just to prevent that 1 instantaneous kill. Now, of course, that in PvP would be pretty insane. It means that you're going to survive all grenades. You're not going to be able to be grenaded immediately. You're going to survive rocket launchers. You're going to survive pretty much anything that would kill you in just 1 shot. You're going to survive supers. So that would be incredibly powerful. Would it be too powerful? Well, I mean, it does depend. You would survive, but you would be at 1 health. Literally anything else, a gust of wind, would end up killing you. And often, if you're doing something like a Fist of Havoc, you may be able to survive the initial explosion, but the immediate aftermath effect, if they're using aftermath, would kill you right away. A single shot would kill you. So it really does seem like a very, very strong ability. I would perhaps make it a random chance. You would have like a 50% chance or even a 20% chance to have this activated to survive something that should have killed you at 1 health. And that would be pretty interesting. However, you could also just make it so that that effect doesn't apply in PvP. That's the one area where that is concerning. In PvE, you'd be able to survive a boss smash from close range and stuff like that, which would also be quite useful. It just wouldn't be as redonkulous as in PvP. That ability aside, the first exotic ability is also quite interesting. Getting precision kills causes those med packs to drop, to which you or your teammates can pick up and start health regeneration. That seems very good in PvE especially. I know everyone thinks about PvP immediately when we're talking about new weapons and balance and stuff, but in PvE, considering you get so many precision kills, like with this hand cannon, you can just one-shot, thralls and acolytes and all of those things, and then just create a ton of med packs, to which you can run over whenever you need that health regeneration, which again is quite useful. In PvP, it's probably not as useful as you may think. Having to kill an enemy, which usually you kill an enemy from a certain range away, and then there's other enemies kind of nearby, running into the fray just to start health regeneration is probably not the best idea in a lot of circumstances. It will still come up, and it will still be a very useful ability, but I mean, that's why this is exotic, but I don't think this is going to be as insane as people may think. In any event, we have 2 very unique, very interesting ideas, and that makes me really like this concept. Alright, moving on to Benjamin's creations. Firstly, we have the indiscriminate exotic auto rifle slash scout rifle concept by InTheDark. So yes, this is going to be a pretty interesting idea. Firstly, it starts out as a high rate of fire auto rifle with 60 rounds in the magazine, so something like an Atheon's Epilogue. But then we have the first exotic perk, Stick Switch, pressing the right analog stick down, which right now I don't think it does anything, so it's a free slot to utilize, but doing so will change the behavior of your gun. It will change it into a long-range scout rifle that uses up 5 ammo per shot. So it would essentially only have a 12-round magazine, which pretty much puts it in line with other scout rifles. It also has a second exotic perk, Shift Multiplier. Landing 3 shots on target without missing in scout rifle mode will cause the 4th shot to do bonus damage. And how scout rifles are balanced in PvP, that's pretty much never going to really matter too much. If you've already landed 3 shots, you've either already killed the enemy or your 4th shot will kill them regardless. So that extra damage, I mean, it's nice and it could actually come up if the enemy is using some kind of super, but that's mainly going to be great for DPS in PvE. Being able to go into scout rifle mode and then start damaging a boss or a higher tier enemy, like a Hallowed Knight or a Reaver Captain, and then getting more DPS than usual by landing those multiple shots and getting that 4th shot bonus damage, that's going to be quite useful. But the main draw to using this gun is that it switches when you want it to switch. The Fabian strategy switches kind of automatically, and in certain scenarios it's doing the wrong thing where you'd rather have it do the opposite essentially. You don't really have control over it other than trying to perfectly predict your engagement lengths, which can be difficult. But this weapon, you manually tell it when to switch. You put into your controller, you press the button, I want this to be a scout rifle now. Press it again, I want it to go back to an auto rifle. And that can be extremely useful. Of course, in PvP, being able to, you're at a long range engagement, you're on a long range map, you can switch to scout rifle mode. If you start to get close range, if you're playing, something like Anomaly, you go to auto rifle mode, and then back and forth whenever you want, and that is incredibly useful. And in PvE as well, you're getting charged by a bunch of thralls, auto rifle mode. If you're picking off a boss from forever away, scout rifle mode. This weapon actually, and the degree of customization essentially, and being able to change this weapon depending on your engagement, is a huge upside. And it's a very interesting idea, and it's something that Bungie hasn't done very often. We have a very small number of guns kind of doing this, with the best example probably being the Murmur fusion rifle all the way back from the Dark Below. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You could change it between arc damage and solar damage, but it would actually change the archetype that weapon belonged to. Solar damage fired faster, did less damage, and when you switched to arc, it did more damage but fired slower. So this is kind of along that same vein. But moving on, we have the Vulcan's Furnace Exotic Titan Gauntlets concept by olivoo. Now this has the exotic perk Lava Flow. Firstly, it replaces the effects of Sun Charge, Sunspots, and Forge Master. And that's just to make sure that this is balanced. So it replaces those effects with this exotic ability. And the exotic ability is that your hammers are now faster to throw and move faster, but your damage is lowered and your blast radius is lowered as well. So that's pretty interesting. You throw hammers faster and they move faster, which seems great, but you're doing less damage and you have a smaller blast radius, so you have to be more accurate than ever. That is a very interesting exotic armor piece, because that completely changes the behavior of your hammers, while still keeping it very true to the idea of the subclass and of hammers. Just makes them, a lot faster. You get to use a lot more hammers, but again, they do less damage. Would that be good? And in which scenarios would that be good? In PvP, you'd think, well, they go faster, you could probably throw more of them, so that would be good, right? Well, lowering the blast radius is definitely not a great thing, and if the damage is lowered enough that a single shot won't kill, let's say, a max armor guardian, that's going to be interesting as well. You're going to have to throw a second hammer. So it's a very, very dynamic exotic perk that makes you really think about which scenarios would this be good in PvE as well. You really got to take DPS into account. Would this be overall less DPS than just using normal hammers, or would it result in more DPS if you're throwing it all really fast at the same target? And again, it's a very interesting thing that you're going to have to think about where its uses are, and that means it's a pretty well-designed exotic. It makes you think, it makes you wonder, where would this be good? That's something that you should be looking for in design. Alright, now moving on from there, we have the Rattlesnake, exotic auto rifle concept by Zak Stuart. Now first off, it has the perk Stinging Bite. This weapon deals solar damage. So we've kind of seen with the Age of Triumph that I guess that's how Bungie is balancing these solar primaries, by making them exotic. So it's a lot more realistic to have more ideas now with elemental burns. We next have the exotic perk, the Rattlesnake. When being shot at by any other weapon, the recoil pattern of this weapon becomes much more predictable. So, for me, I would maybe add like one more ability to make this thing feel a little bit more special, a little bit more exotic. Right now, it just kind of seems like a very good auto rifle, but still, if it is solar, like it definitely could be an exotic for sure. I mean, you know, other solar raid weapons are exotic just because they're solar. But the Rattlesnake perk, I really, really like, because to me, that seems like the makings of a totally new perk, that like something we could potentially see maybe in Destiny 2, where if you're being shot at, your recoil pattern becomes more predictable, your maybe stability goes up, or your recoil goes down, something like that, to make your shots easier to land. Essentially, it's reverse flinch, and it gives you the advantage in certain gunfights. Like, I see a perk like that, a perk where getting shot at reduces your recoil. That would be probably a top tier perk, because that would really give you the edge in 1v1s. Often, you don't even have to get shot first, but often when you're shooting an enemy, they're shooting you back. And then getting a bonus in that engagement could be quite useful. Now this perk is obviously more tailored for PvP. In PvE, it would really not matter too much. Now of course, solar damage would matter a lot in PvE, but the Rattlesnake perk, not so much. Very interesting idea nonetheless. And moving on, the last exotic concept we're going over today is the Daybreaker, exotic hand cannon concept by Calvin Y. This weapon has two unique perks. The first one is an intrinsic perk, Daybreaker. A kill with the final round of the magazine would have a chance to load a lone bullet into the magazine that will do very high damage. This weapon also deals solar damage, but the bullet would have a very low chance to activate, and the damage would be probably the same as a sniper rifle body shot. So it would do like over 100 damage. It would be a very high damaging round. If you got a headshot, it would kill instantaneously, but it's only about a 5% chance to trigger. Now next up, the exotic perk is Supernova Star Destroyer. Repeated precision shots with this weapon will raise the chance of the Daybreaker bullet occurring. Essentially, it will increase the chances from a 5% base chance all the way up to 25% chance. So, overall, a pretty interesting weapon package with a lot of things going on, but essentially it boils down to, if you can get a kill with the last bullet of the magazine, which already, that's a tall order. Like, that doesn't happen as much as you'd think. Most of the time, you know, if you're using a hand cannon in PvP, if you're using an Ice Luna, if you're using a Palindrome, you are not getting the final kill of your magazine too often, and when you do, you like breathe out a sigh of relief. You're like, oh, I barely got that guy. You don't really want that to be happening. You want more rounds in the magazine just in case. But with this gun, if you do, you have a small chance to get that super bullet. Now that super bullet is a pretty cool idea. You get one round to the magazine, it does a bunch of damage, like your gun will probably be glowing or something to indicate this. And if you get a shot, it does like a ton of damage and you can one-shot kill with a headshot. Sounds freaking cool. Of course, if you get more precision shots during your entire magazine, you have a better chance to activate it with that final bullet. I think this weapon is just really cool. I don't think it would be overpowered because it is really hard to say you have to get a kill with that final round of the magazine. That is a pretty substantial thing you have to accomplish just to get this bonus bullet. But if you do, like, you get rewarded. You have to be accurate. I mean, you have to land a headshot with that bonus bullet, but if you do, you're gonna get a kill. Good for you. You know, exotics are supposed to be exotic, and I think a lot of people are kind of not too happy with all the exotics getting nerfed to crap over the years, so maybe it's time to bring exotics to, you know, being actually powerful again. And make no mistake, this is a powerful ability. It would be a hard ability to activate, but it is a powerful ability when it happens. Of course, for PvE, you're going to be activating that super bullet a lot more often. It is much easier to like wait for the last round of your magazine and then precision shot a thrall or an acolyte or a drag or something like that, a low tier enemy, to much more often guarantee that super bullet. And that super bullet would be, you know, very good. You basically get a sniper shot out of your hand cannon, so you can use it against a higher tier enemy, a knight, a captain, something like that, and that could definitely be quite effective. And so guys, that is it for the 5 featured exotics for this episode. Now if you guys want to submit your exotic idea, here are some tips for getting selected. Firstly, try to make sure that your idea is realistic for Destiny. Getting a kill and turning into a dragon is cool, but it's never actually going to be in the game. Secondly, try to self-regulate your idea. Try to make sure that your idea isn't overpowered. Getting a kill and instantly getting an overshield is something that would be incredibly overpowered in PvP. Moving on from there, try to make sure that your idea isn't overly complicated. This is a big one. If you're writing multiple paragraphs trying to explain your weapon, and it would take me 10 minutes just to explain what your gun does, I can't pick you. So try to rein in on that. Remember that if your idea was in the game, it would have to explain the perk in only a few sentences when you scrolled over it. Now with that being said, don't be afraid to completely break the traditional gun norms. Don't be afraid to make SMGs, laser rifles, spears, battle axes, heavy sniper rifles. We've had all of those and we've featured them on this series. So don't think you have to be restrained by the current gun system. And guys, the last thing we're going to do is shout out all of the other creations from this week. Firstly, we have the Wings of Ahamkara exotic rocket launcher concept by N64 Gamer. Now after that, we have the Timekeeper exotic hand cannon concept by Glamdring804. And lastly, we have the Beetle Break exotic scout rifle / pulse rifle concept by Ravenous. Guys, that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed, please remember to support this series by liking and especially sharing. The only reason we're able to keep doing this series is because of people willing to do that. And if you guys want to see more Destiny content and don't want to miss out on next episode of Fan-Made Exotics, happens every 2 weeks, be sure to slap that subscribe button. Now if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.